Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Bengal Tiger Recruiting Podcast. I am Billy Embody. With me is Shea Dixon. We're going to lead off with a little bit of a heat check. It's getting warmer in South Louisiana. Everybody's gearing up for summer, and LSU is targeting some of the top prospects around the country. And Shea and I are going to kind of share a couple of prospects each that LSU is trending in the right direction, getting a little warmer in a sense, as far as where they stand in those recruitments. And we're going to go one out of state, one in state. So let's jump right in. Shea, we both went defensive side of the ball for this in-state part of our heat check. And they shouldn't come as a surprise for our listeners. We'll get to our out-of-state predictions, which also are well-known LSU targets. But you went safety with your prediction.
Yeah, I did. And I think I kind of went safe with my prediction. I feel like I'm, excuse me, I'm choosing a guy who I feel maybe best about ends up in this class. And Billy, we've talked about it on the show before. You look at the top of the state rankings right now, like I've got On3s pulled up. Dominic McKinley out of Acadiana is the number 14 player in the country. Wardell Max, the number 26 player in the country. Trey Green is one of the top tight ends in the country. All those guys are uncommitted. All of them still trending to LSU on the RPM. But I'll pick the guy who's ranked fourth in the state right now, Joel Rogers up at West Feliciana. He was at practice, been to a couple practices now, but I saw him at practice last week. And he spent a lot of time with the defensive backs, just hanging, watching, walking kind of through every position drill with them. Major Burns had come over and spent some time with him, another Baton Rouge guy, and I guess for Rogers, Baton Rouge area guy. But I just get the sense, even though Oklahoma and Bama recently and a number of schools have come in and offered, we're talking about a St. Francisville kid who the staff is on and recruiting heavily and made the offer to right after his junior season. They have him high on the board. He did not have to wait until summer camp. For a number of reasons, I feel like he's one that's not going to leave the state. It's going to be easy for his family to see him play his college football at LSU. So I'll go local. And with a safety, as you said, and someone who will address this in a bit, Billy, I think is one of the most important positions this cycle for LSU.
Well, you got to feel safe with your pick, the way Lundy's guarding the front window there in the background and now taking a break from the duties of the guard dog. But I'm also going local. And Deshaun McBride out of Denham Springs is a versatile prospect, safety, linebacker, wherever he ends up, depending on how his body grows and develops, he's going to be a player, in my opinion. I got a chance to see him in 7-on-7, really ran well, moved around well, really long, athletic player. Whether he ends up at safety or linebacker is still up for deciding in the future as he grows. But I feel like LSU, since offering, has cemented themselves as probably the team to beat in this recruitment. And I think when you look at the, way college football is going overall, you need guys like him. You need players that can move down into the box if they are back there at safety. You need players who can run and cover if they're at linebacker. And Deshaun McBride brings that. And I think LSU's done a really nice job prioritizing him. He's gotten some big offers. He's one of the top prospects in Louisiana and somebody I think could be poised to rise up the ranks. He had a terrific junior year, and I think he'll only build off of that as a senior. So I think LSU goes right down the road, kind of like you, and will land Deshaun McBride at some point. And I feel like that's a pretty safe bet as well. So I've got my dog, I've got my cat protecting me on those picks, just like you have Lundy. So those are two pretty safe bets, I feel like, for LSU. When we look at this 2024 recruiting class, especially in the state of Louisiana, we go outside the state, but not too far for both of our next picks out of state. Two prospects LSU's trending for, in our opinion. Shea, you went at a position of need and one that LSU fans know well.
Yes, I'll switch it down to the D-line on this pick, and I'll go Charleston Collins. And I guess I'm playing it a little safe again. I'm picking a kid not from Louisiana because that's the rules. I had to go outside the state. So I'll go to a border state. I'll go up to Arkansas. And Man, I'm looking at his On3 profile. I guess I could count it up. I bet he's been to campus as many times as any out-of-state D lineman has been, including Colin Simmons, over the past year. He's just been, whether it was at games or a summer camp or spring visits a year ago or already visiting this spring, he has given LSU the attention that I think warrants them being the team that's in the lead on the On3 RPM. And we're talking about a kid who's 6'4", 250. LSU's worked him out at camp. They like him. You're going through a transition right now, Billy, to a new D-line coach. We don't know who that is yet. I think once that hire is made, one of the first kind of big priorities for him will be building up that relationship with Charleston Collins. And it doesn't seem Collins is in a rush to make a decision right this second. So I think that bodes well for LSU. My guess with him is he's one of those guys, Billy, that LSU hires a new D-line coach. He makes a couple of official visits in, the spring and summer. And before his senior year, he says something to where, hey, I'm committed to this school. And then he focuses kind of the rest on, hey, look, I'm a senior now. I'm focusing on football and graduating and all those things. So I like what they've done so far. And even without a D-line coach, I'll pick a D-lineman. I like Charleston Collins and their chances there.
Yeah, that's a good pick. And one that, when you lose a position coach, certainly could throw a wrench in it. But you mentioned the amount of time LSU will have to build that relationship with the new D-line coach as far as Charleston Collins goes. And I like that pick a lot. And I think there are numerous programs that are seeing what he could bring to the table from an athletic perspective. Auburn just had him on campus, or again, numerous other programs in the mix there, but LSU sits in a good spot ahead of official visits. I'll go on the other side of the line, and I'll go offensive lineman, and one that as I dive deeper into his recruitment, and he's somewhat quiet, but a prospect that has been to LSU before, been on campus, and Brad Davis has prioritized from the get-go a really nice early offer here to Beaumont United offensive lineman Weston Davis. So just on the other side of the border, again, from Louisiana, but a guy who sits as the number 54 overall prospect in the country, the number 7 offensive tackle nationally. Alabama does lead the on-recruiting prediction machine. I'll note that Bama has an official visit set up with Weston Davis, so they are a factor in his recruitment. I do think that LSU, Texas A&M are among the other programs battling it out for him. He's somebody that also plays basketball, so he hasn't been able to take as many visits as he probably wanted to this spring, but he will be at LSU some point very soon. He was, unable to attend the junior day earlier this month because of the basketball tournament. He'll pop up on campus, and I think Brad Davis is going to secure an official visit. I like the way LSU is recruiting him. I like that they were early on him. I think as you look at guys at various points in their recruitment, some guys are well into setting official visits. Some guys are well down the road toward making a decision. Weston Davis might not be that guy. He needs to take some visits, see which schools he really likes. But from all I've heard, he's given LSU some positive vibes. I think they're right there near the top, if not the top of his recruitment. So we'll continue to monitor Weston Davis, who will pop up on campus at some point for a visit. And I think Brad Davis is doing a nice job recruiting him.
Yeah, Brad Davis has proven so far since he's been here that he can recruit both in-state and outside the state. He was one of the first names I feel like we heard about in the class. Weston Davis was. And, Billy, pop quiz time. Who just got the key to the city in Beaumont with LSU connections? Very recently, within the last week. It's a woman, a female.
Alexis Morris.
That's right.
Yep.
So Beaumont's newest key to the city holder is an LSU graduate, national champion.
I love that. Shout out Lupe Tortilla in Beaumont. It's a good stop between Baton Rouge and Houston when you're going to go see some high school games. So keep that in mind for all our recruit nicks out there. And
I'll say this: I'm joking about it. I'm not joking about Alexis Morris. I'm serious. She got the key to the city, but I do know her parents and family were in at every game. Like Beaumont to Baton Rouge is not far if you're going to watch your kid play football or you're trying to go home on the weekends or whatever it might be. So even though he's a Texas kid, I think that location there for me is one that's intriguing, right? Like that's about as close as it gets if you're in Texas to being in Baton Rouge.
No question about it. So proximity maybe going to play a factor for Weston Davis, judging on how his recruitment's going so far. LSU, A&M among the top schools. Bama, obviously a little bit of a stretch outside of LSU and A&M distance-wise, but all three of those schools right in the mix for him. And we'll see. Maybe one day he gets the key to the city of Beaumont if he were to come to LSU, or, who knows, wherever he goes. But we do have some big remaining needs to monitor for LSU. And it is early still in this recruiting cycle, but some of those needs are emerging. We've talked about them on the podcast before, but it's a good time to reset. Spring is winding down, just a little over a week left before spring wraps up for LSU, and then the coaches will get out on the road. They're going to be prioritizing a few positions of need, and you went also on the defensive side of the ball. We might as well on pretty much all defense on this podcast.
I think that's a big need for him in this cycle is defense. And hey, defense wins championships. Okay, so I'm digging through the list of sort of DB safety athlete types because my pick is safety. And I think that is the biggest position of need for them. And I look at them right now in camp, Billy, and the current team, your two starters are in their final year, really. Major Burns and Greg Brooks, both of them are injured. And that was one of the worst case scenarios because their backups are Matthew Langlois, who's injured and still recovering from an injury. Jordan Allen, who's really now in his second year with the program and is now thrust into first team reps. You've got Ryan Yates taking first team reps as a kid who just came out of Denton Guyer, 15 minutes ago. And Sage Ryan, who is one of the safeties, is having to be your starting nickel because guys like Deuce Chestnut, who transferred in from Syracuse, are injured and not out there for spring. So I think spring has shown me how shallow they are at safety. And look, Toviano, who I'm high on, and you are as well, and we've seen him at corner, nickel, safety. He was a safety in high school, but they've wanted him at corner. Ashton Stamps was a safety in high school. They want him at corner. If their long-term goal is to develop those guys as corners, you got to get some safeties. So I think this, for me, all ties together well because I look at their commitment list for LSU, and they've got one safety, Maurice Williams, committed. I think you need at least three. And the two guys that we had on our in-state list earlier, Deshaun McBride and Joel Rogers, can fill that out. Deshaun McBride set Denham Springs interception record with 9 picks this past season. Joel Rogers played quarterback and safety up at West Feliciana. So he's a really versatile guy. And then I always like to look, around Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Georgia sometimes. Who's out there that you have a shot at? We've mentioned guys like Joshua Lair, Cadavian Dotson-Walker, who we're going to talk about here in a moment, that's visiting soon. There's guys out there. I think that they have to keep Maurice Williams, get McBride and Joel Rogers, and then move forward from there. Because let's be real, Derek Williams was a really good safety who got out of the state a year ago. That can't happen again. These two top guys have to stay home if I'm feeling good about the safety position.
Yeah, and they're bringing in Kylan Jackson this summer, who will add to that.
No, I forgot about Kylan. Yeah.
Yep. But look, I don't think he plays linebacker, but he sure plays like a linebacker. I think they need a cover safety, a free safety, a guy that can really get back there and cover ground. And I think Joel Rogers is a great pick for that. There are a lot of safeties out there that LSU is after. Kerry Cooks has really done a nice job blanketing the country, really going after safeties. So he's had a nice mix of prospects on campus, and there's going to be dominoes that fall. And I think LSU is in a position where they can probably come away with some of those in-state targets like we talked about, keep Maurice Williams potentially, and also come away with another quality out-of-state safety, which would really solidify that room long-term. And
yeah. Where are you going with this? What are you picking?
Yeah. I'm going edge.
Ooh.
So pass rusher. You lose BJ Ojulari to the NFL draft. You see Deshaun Womack coming in as a 5-star and getting up to about 6'5", 270 already. Brian Kelly obviously said earlier this spring that, they're still not sure if he'll play jack or if he'll play strong side defensive end. That strong side defensive end spot is well stocked with talent. Savion Jones, Quincy Wiggins, Jackson Howard's got some size and can add more to his frame. But, they've got to address the pass rusher spot. And I did a piece on the Bengal Tiger, so subscribe if you haven't already to the BengalTiger.com. Get a free Founders Club hat. and check us out over there. But they do have options. They have a lot of guys that they've hosted for visits. They have players that they've been linked to for a long time. We always talk about Colin Simmons, the 5-star plus prospect out of Duncanville, Texas. CJ Jackson out of Georgia has visited. LSU is going to get an official visit from him. Jordan Ross is out of Alabama, and he's got LSU in the mix for an official visit. And they've got some other names they're after as well. But this is also a position that nationally, I look at it as pretty deep. And LSU is in deep with a number of those guys. They've got to come away with one of the elite guys. And I think that's so critical. The player, whoever they get, can come in and honestly start right away. Ovie Agofu is going to be gone. They'll have some other guys at that position. But if you can sign a top 100 prospect at this position, and obviously the dream would be for Colin Simmons to be that guy, I think they're going to be in a much better spot. They'll have solidified it with a starter, with an instant impact player. I think edge is so critical in this 2024 class.
Yeah, and look, Harold Perkins can play that spot. I know he's playing middle linebacker right now because that's what they want him to get adjusted to and add to his repertoire, because really he was more of an edge guy a year ago, a kind of a gadget player. And I also still am not ruling out Deshaun Womack that can stand up and play the edge spot. And he is 270, so that makes him, a big edge, but he's super athletic. I think you make the point of, okay, great, keep doing that. You got Harold Perkins 2 years ago. You got Womack this year. Get another one of those type of guys who is an elite edge rusher and can get in the backfield. And whether you'd like that guy to stay as a jack linebacker, of course, but you're right. After Ovie Agofu, we don't know what Braden Swinson brings. We don't know what Jackson Howard brings. And those have been the only guys who have been out there at the jack position in spring ball with John Jancic, their new position coach. So I like it. And for me, it's kind of the NFL, like each class. One thing that can make a recruiting class a lot better is an elite offensive tackle, an elite edge rusher, and a great quarterback.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I mean, I would think it's the most kind of dire need in this 2024 class. I mean, we can debate some positions, but you look at that group after this season and there's just not a guy. So they've got to land one of those highly touted prospects they're after. Again, I did a breakdown on the BengalTiger.com for those who want to go more in depth, some options who have offers and also some options who they could offer as spring evals and senior seasons unfold. So look out for that. And also we'll continue to dive into some of the other positions, namely the secondary as well, and assess where LSU stands from an in-depth perspective. Two prospects LSU is in deep on are Duncanville standouts, Caden Durham and Dotson-Walker, one of the top running backs in the country and one of the top safeties in the country, respectively. Both are set to hit campus this weekend, Shea, and this visitor list, we'll have it on the BengalTiger.com, so be sure to check that out. But they are really emerging as two guys that LSU's had on campus multiple times in both cases, and guys at relative positions of need.
Yes, well, we're going to, when you tease an upcoming segment, Billy, or I guess a bit of a stretch here of time, that Duncanville kids are coming in to visit LSU, they want you to say Colin Simmons. We just got done talking edge rushers. We just got done talking big needs. He's the 5-star. At this point, we're not expecting him to come in. That was never part of his plan, I don't believe. But all along, the two other Duncanville kids, and they just had Alex January on campus, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, who's a fourth Duncanville kid. But they'll have Dotson-Walker, a safety, who we talked about just a little bit ago, and then Caden Durham at running back. And Caden Durham recently has made a little bit of news. We wrote an article about this because he got offered by LSU in track. He had a really good Texas relays and then got offered by OU in track. And Billy, you correct me if I'm wrong. His mom went to OU. Did she run track at OU?
I'm pretty sure she ran track at OU.
Is that a death nail for LSU here?
I've been in the camp that Oklahoma is going to be a tough out when it comes to LSU landing Caden Durham. They're doing a really nice job overall recruiting him. They've had him on campus multiple times, and he is set to bring his family. So that is important. They'll get a chance to really see LSU more in depth this time around. But Oklahoma does a really nice job recruiting those Duncanville kids. They have a former teammate on campus, Savion Byrd, and they've just recruited Dallas very well. They've got Emmett Jones now there as their wide receivers coach who has Dallas ties, and DeMarco Murray is a former OU standout NFL running back, and he's got his claws into a few different running backs nationally. It's a position of need for the Sooners. But Caden Durham is one of them that they've been relatively all in on for a long time now.
I'm looking at the running back. Frank Wilson's only offered 8 running backs in this class. One's already committed. And I could name you these other guys, and a number of them are heavy leans to other schools already. And even the LSU fan, I'll run through them. 7 guys. No, it was 6, not including Caden Durham. Jacoby Williams, Brandon Hood, Anthony Carey, Stacey Gage, Kevin Riley, and Cameron Davis. And Jarrett Gibson. Cameron Davis is committed to Florida State. None of those guys are anybody that we've talked about at any, extended length at any point in time in this process. To me, it feels like since Louisiana at this point doesn't have a running back that's been offered, that it's like, hey, we're Caden Durham, or we'll figure it out through the portal, because we know in 2025 we can take as many running backs as we want, and they can all be from Louisiana, because you've got 2 of the top 10 players, 2 of the top 10 running backs in the country, Harlan Berry and James Simon, from Louisiana. Then you've got a number of others, Deshaun Ford. You can go down that list. Are we on the same page there? I don't want to call it Caden Durham or bust, but it doesn't feel like Frank Wilson's pressing any panic buttons if it's not Caden Durham.
Yeah, I think Cam Davis and Jarrett Gibson would be 2 guys to watch as far as if they get to campus. Those are really the only 2 that I, am watching closely. Jacoby Williams out of Beckville, Texas, has been to campus, but I think he's somebody that could play a boatload of positions, kind of a gadget type. But he's somebody that LSU is, recruiting. They offered. I don't know if he wanted to jump on board right now, if they'd necessarily take him. But if they can get a Cam Davis, if they can get a Jarrett Gibson on campus, then they can, allocate a little bit more time on those guys. But they haven't made it to campus yet. So right now, again, it's kind of like you said, it's not necessarily Caden Durham or bust, but it's pretty close.
We've got a special treat today. The first half of the pod is football, and the second half is a surprise special guest in basketball, Maddie B. I will also say, before I get replaced by Maddie B on the mailbag pod this week, he was rocking a 1999 Spurs championship hat, a nice throwback. You seem to be rocking your championship shirt today, but it probably is more recent than Maddie B's 1999 Spurs championship.
Yeah, the original, not the original, the second Stanley Cup for the Lightning back in 2021, the bubble Stanley Cup. And then, that was the first of 2 straight, not a big deal. But Shea, to get through the NHL playoffs, which do start next week, and the Lightning are in it once again, I'm going to need some help from my friends at Rogue Shop. RogueShop.com, promo code Bengal Tiger gets you 10% off your order at RogueShop.com. They've got gummies, they've got pre-rolls, they've got tinctures, pain cream. If the Lightning were to have a playoff exit, I might have to rub that all over my body. But they do a great job. Richard and Shar, a veteran and husband and wife outlet that, specialize in small craft canvas production. They've been great friends of the podcast. Everybody on the message board that talks about it has great things to say. And a lot of them have chatted with Richard or Shar in their live chat feature on their website as well.
Yeah, my story for this week is I put in an order for some of the soft gel. Well, they've got all these different, you hear different vitamins you can take, right? Well, I didn't realize that they were making them there as well. So I got some multivitamins from them. They had some CBD vitamins on there, but also fish oil. I didn't realize they've got everything from toothpaste on there, even toothpaste for kids. So did not realize that until I dug deeper into the site. So went ahead and put in a little updated order. I'll come back and tell you how it rocks next week. But I'm anticipating being happy with it. Have not been displeased so far, Billy. And we've got a lot of people on the board that have jumped on. So that's been shout out to Rogue Shop for that.
Yeah, the gummies are a treat too when you just want to settle in and sit on the couch and then get a good night's sleep as well. Which, you and I like to trade stories about that whenever we venture down that road and get some good night's sleep. And you can tell a difference when you don't.
Yeah, Billy was when I got up this morning. I got into our the back end of our system, and Billy had been writing stories at 2:30 in the morning. And I asked him why, and he said he didn't get off the hockey rink until like 1 something in the morning. Just so you know, listeners, not only are there people out there playing sports after midnight that are not professionals, Billy's one of them. He's skating after midnight.
Yeah, that's when I need Rogue Shop Post to wind down after that adrenaline rush and get off the ice and get into bed at a reasonable time, which I did not last night. So slow moving today, and maybe a little Rogue Shop is in our future. We hope it is in yours as well. So check it out, rogueshop.com, promo code Bengal Tiger for 10% off your orders. Shea, appreciate you being on the podcast. It's time for some hoops talk. We're going to bring in Matthew Brune right now to the Bengal Tiger Recruiting Podcast.
Live.
Matty B, LSU has 2 commitments on board with Jalen Cook and Jordan Wright out of the transfer portal, both signed on Thursday as we're in this podcast. Matt McMahon and his staff aren't done yet. They still got a lot of targets out there, but for Cook and Wright to be on board now, that's a good starting point. And LSU is still targeting some Baton Rouge names to join the program as well.
Hey, Billy, I'm doing great. I appreciate Joe's conversation. I put on my Spurs championship hat since Shea said we haven't won championship since '99. But yes, let's start with the two commits, Jalen Cook, Jordan Wright. Obviously, the 2 names here. It was actually announced officially from LSU today. Obviously, it's been done for quite a bit now. But Jalen Cook, dynamic guard out of Tulane, 20 points per game, back-to-back years, all AAC first team player, top 15 player in the portal by On3. Really checks a huge box for this team because we talked about last year's team a lot. It was like Juice Hill was the only real point guard that you could look to and be like, okay, that's like a prototypical point guard that can run the offense and can get them into their stuff. But he was kind of out of his element. I thought the SEC was a little bit too big for him. They get Jalen Cook, who obviously was at LSU's first year, Tulane back-to-back years, looking for the step back up in competition. And, I mean, he has the ball in his hands a lot, but, man, he is just so elite with the ball. I mean, with the way he can shoot it, the way he can dribble, the way he can set up the offense. And I'm interested to see how they build around him. Obviously, Jordan Wright was the first commit out of Vanderbilt, 6'6", wing. I call him a wing. Some people might say guard, but 6'6" wing out of Vanderbilt. Last year of college basketball, did a great job building up that Vanderbilt program with Jerry Stackhouse. And so he comes over here, knows what he's doing, knows what he's looking for, knows how to compete in the SEC. We'll be interested to see how his shooting numbers improve, 31% from 3 last year. But I think a big thing with him is the defensive end. This team is going to need some wing defenders out there. So you get him and Tyrell Ward. That's a pretty good combination on the wing.
Yeah, no question about it. And look, before we look ahead to who's probably coming this weekend and who is on the radar, LSU did have 2 well thought of big men on campus. You spoke with one of them, Wofford transfer B.J. Mack. They also had Nevada center and one-time Texas Longhorn Will Baker on campus. Those 2 guys, top targets for Matt McMahon and his staff, both at very different places in their transfer recruitments, it seems like.
Yeah, BJ Mack, talked to him. He has laid out his schedule for visits over the entire month of April. He has the commitment date of May 4th. So it'll be interesting to see how it, goes throughout the coming weeks. I believe it's Alabama, Iowa, South Carolina, and Arkansas are the other 4 teams in the mix here. So plenty of competition for LSU. Arkansas just picked up its 4th transfer player today. I don't know how many more spots they're going to take. BJ Mack at Alabama feels like a weird fit. So I think they have a real shot here. I think they're going to be in contention. He's from North Carolina, so the South Carolina pool may be could be there. But I think they're in a good spot for BJ Mack, obviously still with, 3 weeks in his recruitment. Will Baker, Nevada, like you said, he's an interesting one because he is a true 5-man, which they're going to need, especially with Sean Phillips entering the portal. He can score the ball at a really high level. He's an experienced guy. He was really highly touted coming out of high school in Austin, going to Texas. And, it would give them a little bit of a scoring punch at the 5, which obviously KJ had last year. They're looking to replace that either with BJ, with Will Baker, maybe with both. So, yeah, that's kind of the outlook for those two right now. I think Will Baker is someone a lot of people have said LSU's in a really good spot with. I tend to agree with it, but I don't think they're done looking at the center spot yet.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And look, we transition into a guy who Baton Rouge area folks probably know well if you keep up with the high school basketball ranks. Carlos Stewart, who's from the Durham school. He was out at Santa Clara. He knows Jordan Wright well. They were obviously both Durham school products. He's now one of the top targets after entering the transfer portal, and that backcourt retooling could not be done with him being a Baton Rouge guy. LSU sits in a good spot from what we're hearing. What do you see out of him when you turn on the tape?
Yeah, 15 points per game. Santa Clara coming out of the West Coast Conference, a very, very capable team. I believe they came in 3rd or 4th in the conference last year behind Gonzaga and St. Mary's. So obviously capable competition. This is not any different really to me from Jalen Cook coming from Tulane. Very similar competition levels to the AAC and the West Coast Conference. I think he's 6'1". They already have Jalen Cook there. I'm interested to see how they would use him if they can get him on campus, how they want to play it, because the backcourt, obviously, with Jalen Cook being the way that he plays at 6 foot, Carlos Stewart being the guy who could score the ball efficiently, can handle the ball as well. So you have some options at the guard spot there, but at the same time, how many of these guards can you accumulate? How many do you really want? Which I'm sure we'll talk about another one soon, but that's going to be the interesting thing to me is they're courting a lot of these guards. How many of them do they end up actually taking? But Carlos Stewart, like you said, seems like one that it seems a little bit too obvious for me for them not to get.
No question about that. Mark Abram out of Ole Miss is still an option. He hasn't committed anywhere just yet. But they're also targeting a guy that, if you guys are subscribers on the Bengal Tiger, you heard about him, probably 2 weeks ago. Joe Girard out of Syracuse, one of the top guards available, top real 3-point shot makers. He is set to take an official visit to LSU this weekend. That's a big one for LSU. We know they need help on the perimeter shooting the basketball.
Yeah, they were under 33% shooting the ball from 3 last year. I believe like 250th in the country, somewhere around there in 3-point percentage. The offense was obviously not good, but not only were they bad last year at 3-point shooting, KJ Williams was their best 3-point shooter, and obviously he's gone. Then Adam Miller, who wasn't great last year, but at least was capable at times of getting hot, is gone. So really you're only left with Cam Hayes and now Jalen Cook as your only 2 guys that can really shoot the ball. We'll see what Tyrell Ward becomes. But perimeter shooting is almost not negotiable at this point for Matt McMahon and the staff. You have to find shooters. You have to find a variety of guys that can shoot the ball and can be in different situations. And that's what makes Girard really interesting. I mean, he started 123 games for his career. 4 straight years of starting at Syracuse. And Syracuse hasn't been, Syracuse of old. I'm not saying that they're a juggernaut, but still, we're talking about a guy that's put up 16 points per game and shot 7 threes per game last year on a 38% clip. Even if he's just, whether he's coming off the bench or whether he's starting, he's someone you want on your team. You kind of just figure out the rest from there. And that's what I've mentioned with adding all these, smaller guards that can all score the ball. It's kind of like, how do they all fit if you get all of them on campus and get them all playing together? That's going to be the interesting thing. But ultimately, this team desperately needs scoring, and Joe Girard, if nothing else, can score the ball for sure.
And we save the best for last because he is coming off of a championship run.
Yes, he is. Right.
And I know this one might be emotional for you, but LSU in the mix for another big man, one you're very familiar with out of North Texas.
Yeah, Abu Usman out of North Texas, 6'10" center. He's originally from New York, which is what makes this interesting. He started two of his 3 years at North Texas. Really, really good, good player. Kind of back to the basket type post. Good rebounding, good defense. But you look at the other schools that he's been talking to, a lot of them are Big East schools, and that's what makes me kind of hesitant for LSU's chances. I think they're planning on getting him on campus at some point, but I think it will be hard eventually to get him away from the East Coast, because I think ultimately entered the transfer portal kind of looking to get a little closer to home. But obviously LSU maybe in the SEC can offer him maybe something that Big East schools can't. So that's the whole thing we'll have to weigh. We'll have to see how that goes. But I don't think they take both Abu and Will Baker. I think that would be maybe asking a lot. But so maybe they try to get one of those two, and maybe he's a backup to Baker or backup option to Baker, and you kind of go from there. But that's kind of how I'm reading it. Big East schools. He's from the East Coast. It'll be interesting to see if they get him on campus, how that goes.
Yeah, and he is headed to Seton Hall this week. The rumor is he might end up at LSU next week. So we'll, again, see how that recruitment pans out, as well as the rest of the transfer portal process for Matt McMahon and his staff. They're working it. They're in contact with a lot of guys. We'll be there to follow it for you guys every step of the way on the BengalTiger.com. So be sure to subscribe to the site and keep hitting that subscribe button to our YouTube channel as well. Doesn't cost you a thing, and you get, some above average commentary and content on your YouTube channel. So appreciate all you guys who have pushed us over 3,500 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We will be back next week with another round of podcasts for you guys. So hope everybody has a great weekend, and we will catch you next time on the Bengal Tiger Podcast. Thanks for listening.